might be familiar with this saying, excuses are tools of incompetence used to build monuments amount of nothingness, and those who use them seldom amount to anything. We have to quit making excuses for these behaviors that we see. People know in our community especially that the criminal justice system is not designed for us. People know in our community that the Constitution, which is not perfect, but it's all what we have right now to live by, is not designed for us because when it was drafted, minus the amendments, it had no protections for us. So we know every day that when our child leaves a home, that he or she could possibly be racial profile. We have seen these stories before. So I think it's time, in my opinion, we can't keep giving excuses for parents who are not taking responsibility and accountability and making plans for their children to be safe.
So
and
the
making
net of
plans.
what you're saying, what? The net of what you're
The
saying
net of what I'm
was
saying
what?
is simple. Is that moms and dads, when they want to go work and hang out, or they want to go hang out, they find somebody to get them to where they want to go. They could do the same thing for their children. They could find somebody to supervise their children. I just can't understand why a child is out at 2:30 in the morning. It doesn't make any sense. I just don't see that one. I can't agree with the fact that we don't need to hold parents accountable. I just think until we see parents being arrested and charged as well, I'm not saying all, but until we see that, that's the only thing that's going to cause something to trigger in other parents' minds. Say, okay, she went to jail. I'm not going to jail for you and
All
your
right.
behavior.
All right. And I think that speaks to Shaka's point about once they do, where's that grade line? But Tracy.
Frankie, I think that in this story, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the fact, and if we did not mention the fact that, these kids are heavily influenced by social media. And I think that while we're doing some policing, I think, it has to be something that we're doing here with social media because I am extremely mindful that when they started beating the man, the 15-year-old handed the
Mm-hmm.
10-year-old a camera so that their miscreant behavior could be recorded. Why? Because, see, people get likes with this stuff on
Mm-hmm.
social media and they wanted to record it so that
But
it could be
Tracy, wouldn't
posted.
you agree? But
Okay.
I got it. I got it, Tracy. I would agree, with all the social media sites that want to show the most egregious behavior, the most
Right.
outrageous behavior. But in that moment, that the 10-year-old, three 15-year-olds, and a 14-year-old said, in order to get likes, we're going to look at this 72-year-old man who is in front of us. Yeah, it would make great social media. But my character, my integrity, the fiber of who I am would not allow me to beat a man to death because social media says I can get likes.
Well, you
And
just
then
said
go.
it. Character, integrity, your moral turpitude. They don't have it, Frankie.
Okay,
The
so
revolution. The revolution is in the home, Frankie. You
Right.
have, and that's
Well,
the
can I
only
add,
way you're going to be able to hold the parents responsible. You got to hold the
Shaka.
parents responsible.
to your point? See, it's so easy to say that, but in terms of act thought process, think about that. Who gets held responsible? The mother, who's the custodial parent, not the father, who may not have even been in the child's life. He's a parent. Does he get held responsible for not instituting fatherly ways and sort of helping guide that particular juvenile into perhaps a more morally acceptable fiber? Or is it just the mom? He lives in your house, it's just you. Dad, he's over there with his girlfriend. He skates scot-free. You have to be very careful about suggesting that we criminalize the parents. Every child has two parents. Whether they're both raising them is another story, but they have two parents. So now implementation becomes a problem. Does mom wear the onus of the criminality, but father help make the kid? Be careful about just saying the police are the catch-all, end-all to these solutions.
all right,
So
let's
when the
give 30
parent,
seconds or we'll
when the
wrap
father
up.
has never been there, how do you find somebody who's a ghost? So
That's
the
criminal.
mother, the mother, but the
That's
mother,
criminal. That is criminal by
but the
itself.
mother, but the mother is criminal. But that's their history. Okay, he's never been around. They probably, if they don't know their father. And I hear what you're saying, but somewhere down the line, somewhere in that home structure, there was a lack of something with the mother. Now, I don't want to judge her. I don't want to say I don't want to judge her because we all judge people. God's judge people. I don't want to be overtly critical, but being overtly critical of her because was she at work? We don't know where she was or
Oh,
was
Right.
she
And
hanging out.
let
struggling
me
with
say,
this
and
one,
let me go
Andrew.
to this. Right. And let me say
You
this.
struggling with
And
this
to
one,
that,
baby.
and to that, when,
He said,
and I don't know the details, haven't read the documents, have not interviewed the mother because, and I hear both Shaka and Andrew because to that, what she did do, hire an attorney and brought both the 10 and 14-year-old in. There are a litany of topics we can talk about relative to this, but what she did do is bring in her 10-year-old and her 14-year-old, knowing the possibility that her 14-year-old may not leave prison for a
right,
long time. That was
right,
a lot
Right.
Years.
because we read the stories around the country where crimes are committed in Chicago and the young 14, 15-year-old ends up in Bessemer, Alabama or Atlanta or LA or New York somewhere. And
Detroit.
it took the parent and a network of other family members or friends to send that young person across the country instead of to jail. I will
right,
just to this point acknowledge that this mother, when she realized what did happen, brought both those two boys in. And it just so
Right.
happened that the 10-year-old was released because he did not assault the gentleman. He just recorded it at the hands of the 15-year-old girl that gave him the camera to record it. So there are some things that that mother who has
right,
been doing it on her own, I'm assuming because she only showed up, always mama's baby, daddy's maybe, showed
right.
up by herself with the attorney and left one of her boys at prison. She should be acknowledged for that because there are a lot of mothers and uncles and brothers. And quite frankly, if more of us in the community, especially those communities that are challenged, start holding their brothers, sisters, sons, and others accountable for what they're doing, we'll see less of the repeat offenders on the street by turning them in like she did just to that point.
Frankie,
All
you're
right.
I agree.
exactly right. And it goes back
Yeah, I
to,
agree. I
our
agree with you
initial
on that.
point, Andrew. We don't have enough information before we pass judgment
Yeah, but we
on this
saw the
mom.
video Trey. We saw. I
But you
saw.
know, it's a
For me, I
conversation
saw enough. Yeah,
on
it
this
is. I
show.
saw enough on the video that there's some major dysfunction there. I
Oh,
just don't
Right.
absolutely.
believe that five children under the age of 15 are out at 2:30 in the morning, and their level of anger, their level of recklessness, to literally chase that man across the street, mama working, was the major issue
Oh, no.
in this particular situation.
And,
No,
and,
I
and,
agree.
and you have to you have to really take that mindset into the laboratory and say how did they develop this anger? Where did it come from? Did they see something in their home to make them, or what are they angry about? Are they angry because their mother or no parents at home? You know, are they angry because the house, maybe no electricity? Are they angry because there's no food in the house? We don't know that. And I hate to say that, all in America to look at all black kids are this way. All black families are this way.
Hmm.
And that cycle is what hurts us and hurt other black kids who are out there just might be having fun, skating, going to the skate park. But now you have made them a target, an even bigger target by law
Yeah,
Right.
enforcement
Right.
now
yeah. Can
today.
I,
Right.
as we get ready to make the transition in talking about our topic for today, I wanted to follow up on the curfew issue. And I just want to get each of your opinions on this. As we close out the entire topic, I'm going to give each of you about a minute or so to just respond on the curfew issue and this comment. I find it very interesting as well. And when I hear it, just to bring it to the forefront, that as a community, and I would say African Americans in particular, not even as much as Hispanics as there are Arabs in this country, that we are responsible for the behavior of every other person. Because when white America and somebody commits a crime, when Dylan Ruth walked in and shot up everybody, not one white person took responsibility or felt like they needed to take some responsibility or
Right.
justification for that boy's behavior. But as soon as a young black person, and you all have known it, when we saw what happened
Right.
in Virginia, when they had the DC sniper, we all sat and said, and we watched the story and said, oh, please don't let them be black. Please don't
Right.
let them be
Right,
black.
right,
How
right.
our
Right.
community takes sole responsibility for people we
Mm.
don't know. And let me be real clear. I'm just as afraid of some of those communities and some of those people as anybody else that walks through that community. But it's interesting how we as a community take responsibility for the behavior of everybody else in our community. Andrew, 45 seconds. I'll start with you, Shaka, then Tracy, and we'll move on to our topic. Are black men under attack, particularly our celebrities? Andrew.
This is the topic, or you want to talk about the
No, I
curfew?
want you to wrap
Uh,
up your final comments on the curfew.
well, look, I think curfews are needed, but it goes back to what Tracy said. You have to have parents working with the government to enforce the curfew,
Mhm.
and not necessarily going down to city hall, but they have to take responsibility for their own homes, and they have to say, every parent knows their child. I know my daughter, and you know their behaviors, and you know that some of them are sneaky. And I think you have to say, okay, am I giving this 14-year-old too much responsibility? And then you have to go find somebody in the family, a friend or someone house he or she can go over, and they can say, well, okay, look,